Newton, Einstein and Pascal are having a bit of time off and they're playing hide and seek. Einstein decides to count and Pascal runs off into the bushes and hides. But Newton just stands there and he withdraws a piece of chalk from his pocket and simply draws a square around himself with 1 metre sides. When Einstein finishes counting, he opens his eyes and sees Newton standing right in front of him. "Ah, Newton, I have found you straight away, you idiot!" But Newton simply looks at Einstein and says, "Au contraire, my dear Einstein, you have actually found Pascal, 1 Newton per metre squared." A proton and a neutron walk into a pub. Proton goes up to the bar and says, "Landlord, I'd like a pint of lager, please, your finest." The landlord pours him a pint of lager and says, "That'll be £3.80, please." The neutron then says, "I'll have the same, landlord." So the landlord pours him a pint of lager but says, "For you, sir, no charge." A room temperature superconductor walks into a bar, walks up to the barman, but the barman says, "Hey, hang on a minute, we don't serve any type of superconductor in here." So the room temperature superconductor simply turned round and left without any resistance. Two atoms are walking down the street when one of them suddenly stops and goes, "I think I've lost an electron." And the other one says, "Are you sure?" He says, "Yes, I'm positive." What do you do if you find a dead chemist? Bury him. Who led the Jewish people through the semi-permeable membrane? Osmosis. You know what, I was browsing the internet the other day when on a complete whim I bought a jet engine. It was an impulse buy. What do you call a tooth in a beaker of deionised water? A 1 molar solution. A neutrino walks into a bar and the barman says, "Hey, we don't serve your type in here." And the neutrino says, "Don't worry, I'm just passing through." How can you tell if a mathematician's an extrovert? Because he looks at your shoes rather than his own when he's talking to you. I've recently decided to cool myself down to minus 273 degrees. My wife thinks it's a really stupid idea and I'm going to end up dying, but I think I'll be okay. Oh hey, if Avogadro calls, can you get him to leave his number? What do you call a baby sheep in a river? A laminar flow. One of my all-time favourites. A photon walks into a hotel and the concierge comes up to her and says, "Excuse me madam, would you like me to carry your bags to your room?" And the photon replies, "I don't have any because I'm travelling light." A Higgs boson walks into a church. The congregation are already there and as he walks through the door the priest turns around. There's a total look of relief on his face. "Thank goodness you're here," he says. "We couldn't have mass without you." What does a quantum duck say? Quark, quark. A cloud of helium walks, or I suppose floats, into a bar and there's a table with some rowdy youths who've had a few too many to drink and they start abusing the cloud of helium, but the cloud of helium simply doesn't react. A parasite walks into a bar and she walks up to the bartender and says, "I'd like to order a drink," and the bartender just completely ignores her and in fact just sits there flicking peanuts at her. So she gets very annoyed at this and says to the bartender, "Well, I really don't think you're a very good host." Every Friday evening a mathematician walks into a bar, same bar, sits on the same bar stool, orders himself a drink and then turns to the empty bar stool next to him and says, "Would you like a drink?" Now the bartender sees this and thinks it's a bit odd, but you know, mathematicians and all, but then it carries on for weeks. So eventually the bartender says to the guy, "What on earth are you doing?" So the mathematician looks a bit morose and he says, "Well, due to quantum theory there is a small but finite probability that one Friday evening a beautiful girl will spontaneously appear on the stool next to me." So the bartender says, "That's ridiculous. Why don't you just go and ask one of the girls in the bar if they'd like a drink anyway? They might say yes." And the mathematician says, "Yeah, what are the chances of that happening?" The local university, insert name of preferred institution, bizarrely has received a grant to put on a party for all of the mathematical functions. And things are really going well actually. Sin X and Cos X are over in the corner flirting, Sigma's had a bit too much to drink and Gamma's dancing drunkenly in the centre of the room. But what's that over there in the corner? E to the x is just sitting there all alone looking a bit sad. So natural log of x goes over and says, "Hey little e to the x, what's the problem? Aren't you enjoying yourself?" And e to the x says, "Yeah, it's okay. I just don't integrate very well." Did you like that? You did? Well, check out some of our other stuff. Why not like stuff, share it, and subscribe to our channel while you're at it as well. Thanks very much.